If you know how to implement debouncing and throttling using JavaScript, this video is not for you. But if not, you better subscribe to my YouTube channel and keep watching this video until the end. Because in this video, I'm going to talk about what is debouncing, and we are going to implement it using JavaScript closures, and also we are going to do the same with throttling as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So what is debouncing? Debouncing is a programming concept used to limit the rate at which a function is executed. For example, let's think about the search functionality. Think about a search functionality where you have to execute a database call to get the search results. So without debouncing, each keystroke would send a separate request, potentially overwhelming the server. But by using debouncing, we can limit that. So with using debouncing, this function will wait until the user stops typing for a specific amount of time before making a single API request. Here is the sample code for the debouncing effect. You can see if I resize this event here, no matter how many times I resize it, the resize event triggers only after I'm stopping this resizing window. So I will stop it, and after 500 milliseconds you can see the resize event handler called .console logged here. So let's see how I have implemented debounce using JavaScript closures. So if we go through the function here, you can see I have a function called debounce, and this is the outer function here. And if we have a look at the inner function, this debounce returns another function here, and in the line 12 we are initializing this debounce function. So what happens is the return function in this original debounce function, what it is returned get assigned to this resize handler. So this resize handler is what we are going to assign or attach to this resize event here. You can see in line 16 I have attached resize handler to the event resize. If we go through this debounce function, you can see I have defined a timeout variable here, and inside this returning function, so starting from line number 4, this is the inner function and this is the outer function. So we finish execution of the outer function in line 12. Once we call debounce, the outer function finish its execution, and whenever we call this resize handler, that's where the inner function starts to execute. So in the inner function, you can see it has the access for this timeout variable, which was declared in the previous invocation of this outer function. And not only that, it has access to this watch time as well. So when we call this resize handler, when we call this debounce function, we pass the function here, the first function, this is the first parameter, and next we pass a wait time. So this inner function still has access to the wait time, which was declared in line number 12. So that's how we have used closures to access these variables which was defined previously in the code. So because of this closure, this inner function still has access to the wait time. So whenever we execute this inner function using this resize handler here, the initial time is cleared out and a new timeout is set with the 500 milliseconds. That's why no matter how many times we resize it, there's no any console logs until we stop it, because every time this resize handler calls, this time is cleared out. The time is cleared out and resetting, and once it stops, we execute this function here, the function we passed in the earlier step. So if we clarify, this inner function still has access to this function we sent earlier in this line 12. So at this step, at this line 16, this line 12 have already executed. So it's done and finished, but still due to clauses, we still have access to the parameters we sent earlier in line number 12. That's how we can use closures to get the functionality of debouncing. And then what's throttling? Throttling ensures that a function is called at regular intervals. No matter how many times a user tries to execute a function within a given period of time, it only executes a fixed number of calls. Let's have a look at the code implementation with an example. This is how I have achieved throttling effect using JavaScript closures. You can see no matter how many times I try to scroll it, this triggers only once per second. So if you have a look in the scroll handler, so I have passed 1000 milliseconds, that means 1 second. So this function executes only once per second. So if we go through this throttle function quickly, you can see I have defined two variables, last call and delay, and in the inner function, as the inner function, I return an anonymous function here. In line number 15, I execute the outer function or else throttle function, where I pass the initial function that needs to be executed on scrolling and also the wait time. And the outer function returns this anonymous function here, and it is assigned to this scroll handler. So what I do is I attach this scroll handler to this scroll event. So whenever I scroll, the scroll handler gets triggers. That means this function gets triggers. So if we have a look, this inner function has access to the last call, which was defined earlier in the function, and also wait time. If we have a look here, I assign this wait time to delay, and yeah, it has the access to the delay or else this wait time as well. So if we have a look, this number in the line number 15, we have already execute and complete the execution of this throttle outer function, but still the inner function has access to its defined function and also variables and also passed parameters, which is used by this inner function here. So first I calculate the time difference. If it's greater than 1 second, then only I execute this function using function.apply method here.